Children at the border are suffering in inhumane conditions, and it seems like of all of the problems, that one should be easy to fix. But there is infighting over money. Here is how one Democratic leader describes the crisis at the border. In a tweet, Congresswoman Karen Bass explains, if a parent locked their child in a cage without soap or toothpaste, they would be charged with child abuse. If a parent were to put their 8-year-old in charge of caring for a toddler, they could be charged with child endangerment. Then the parents could go to jail. The Trump administration is guilty of abuse and neglect. This is state-sponsored child abuse. Joining us now to discuss is that Democratic Congresswoman Karen Bass. She serves on the Judiciary Committee. She's also the chair of the Congressional Black Caucus. Congresswoman, thank you very much. I know how strongly you feel about this. You've been tweeting. I do. What is the problem? How hard is it to approve money to get these kids soap and toothpaste and some beds?
Well, see, first of all, we definitely need to approve the money, but I do not think that is the issue at all. You cannot tell me that the federal government does not have money for toothpaste and soap. This is inflicted on these children as punishment to try to bring Democrats to the table to compromise on the border wall. I think that is absolutely important. The other thing that I think is critical is that we need to stop saying that the policy for family separation has ended. It has not. Since when is a grandmother, an aunt, or a sibling not considered family? Only at the U.S. border.
You make such a good point because some of the watchdogs have gone down. Different professors say from universities who've gone down to interview these kids. Let me read to you one of their assessments. Listen to this. A bracelet on a second grader's wrist had the words U.S. parent and a phone number written in permanent marker. We called the number on the spot and found that no one had informed her desperate parents where she was being held. Some of the most emotional moments of our visit came witnessing children speak for the first time with their parents on an attorney's phone. So, yes, children are still being separated.
You know, this is a human rights abuse. This is such a stain on our country. I have spent the last 20 plus years working to transform our nation's child welfare system. And this is a situation, like my tweet said, if any parent did anything that is going on the border, the children would literally be taken away and put in foster care. You can't tell me that this problem cannot be solved. You remember that President Trump just a few days ago said, well, he was going to cancel education, cancel recreation, cancel the hygiene needs. This was deliberate. How dare you torture children to try to get a compromise out of Democrats? And I am sorry, but hearing about children walking around in soiled diapers, hearing about children taking care of toddlers, you are talking about straight up child abuse. And I think that this needs to be condemned internationally, frankly.
Well, look, the Trump administration, some in the Trump administration, even Jeff Sessions at the time, admitted that they were separating families as part of a deterrent. They were hoping that word would get back to those Central American countries and that people wouldn't come. That hasn't happened. The numbers have spiked, as we know, under the Trump administration. However, Congresswoman, it's not like the Democrats have solved this problem. In fact, there are these reports that last night Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker, had this 3-hour sort of contentious meeting. It was described as very tense with high decibel levels of people, yelling at each other or whatever, exchanging ideas. So what is making it, why is it so hard for Democrats to figure out what to do right now?
Well, I wasn't in the meeting, so I'll be anxious to hear. We have a caucus meeting this morning, and I'm sure that it will be reported on. But I know that my colleagues are struggling over, money for the border wall, money for security, when the primary resources need to be targeted to humanitarian needs. The other thing that the president did that is just exacerbating this situation is he cut the assistance to the Central American countries, which is why people are leaving to begin with.
Yes, I understand.
So have to get.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I understand that he's not solving the problem at the root, and a lot of people believe that they should. But it does sound like Democrats, why squabble over money? why are you all still squabbling over money when the kids need the soap today? I mean, why was that meeting among only Democrats so contentious last night?
Well, again, I wasn't in the meeting, so I can't tell you that. But what I can tell you is that my colleagues that are fighting to make sure that these families are no longer separated, that the children are cared for, looking at how those resources are distributed is absolutely critical, because they don't want to give the Trump administration money that then they will allocate in some other direction. And I know that they're fighting to make sure that the money goes toward the children, goes toward humanitarian efforts, and also doesn't go for-profit facilities. One of the things that we're going to look at some point is who is getting extremely rich off of this situation. So I know that those are some of the issues that my colleagues were concerned about. For-profit facilities, the money's not being diverted, the money's focusing just on the children. And so I'll find out later what any further specifics are.
I mean, meanwhile, the Office of Refugees and Resettlement runs out of money at the end of this month.
But children are still being separated from their families. And so those children that are there, they need to be connected with families. A 2-year-old, a 3-year-old, a 5-year-old did not walk across that border alone. Who brought them there? And since when are siblings and grandparents and aunts not considered families?
And by the way, they're being cared for, as we know from, again, the watchdogs, that by teenagers, you know, who are not related to them. So a 14-year-old stranger.
Which is against our law. That is against the law. So if it is child abuse for a parent or child neglect, why is it okay for the government to do that?
So I know you weren't in the meeting last night, but do you have hope that this week the House will have a bill, a funding bill that will work with the Senate and that there will be money?
I do have hope that that will happen, but I will say again, the money that we allocate is no excuse not to provide basic humanitarian resources for children. It is no excuse. As far as I'm concerned, it has nothing to do with our vote this week. We have plenty of money in this government, and you cannot tell me that you can't take care of children and feed them properly. If you reunited them with their family, you wouldn't even have to have these concerns, because their family members would be taking care of them.
Congresswoman Karen Bass, thank you very much for your perspective. We look forward to hearing what happens today.